Hello folks! It seems like at the beginning of this fall season we have been greeted with a dash of rain and a splendid forecast of nothing but clouds, but that's not really a surprise in a land that's oversaturated with all these lakes. Yes, welcome to the land of 10,000 lakes. We got a little glimpse at the end of Fargo as you saw, but this is our first location entirely within the state of Minnesota. I'm very excited because we have entered what I consider the final stretch. Yes, we only have maybe a week's more of content left, and then the Frontier Americana Tour is written in the books completely. Weird to think about that, yeah. We have traveled since the middle of July, and now we're approaching late September. Amazing how fast time flies, amazing the adventures we can create for ourselves here on the Coverage Project. If you can see in the distance, there's all those buildings that indicate we are in a major city, as we'll see today. Welcome to Minneapolis, the largest city, population-wise, of Minnesota. It's a city known for a lot of good, for a lot of bad, for a lot of in-between, but let's zoom out for a minute. Let's zoom out of not just Minneapolis, not just the Twin Cities area. This is a huge area comprising more than 3 million people. But let's look at the state of Minnesota. It's a land known for a lot of nature, 10,000 lakes, the forests in the north, all the rivers and falls and rapids that you'll see here. It's a state of nature. It's a natural paradise. It's also known for the heritage it brings. Once being home to the Dakota people, it's now a land of many different groups, all American now, but you had European groups like the Germans or the Norwegians or the Swedish. That's why we have the Minnesota Vikings, paying respect to the heritage and traditions of the Nordic people here in Minnesota. As much as there's all that natural splendor that makes Minnesota a natural haven, this is also touching Lake Superior, the largest of the 5 Great Lakes of North America. Yeah, lots of water here in Minnesota. You might be thinking, oh, Minnesota, that's where everybody's nice. There's that Minnesota nice. Generally, around the state, I agree with you. And of course, there is the Mall of America down in Bloomington, Minnesota. It's a relatively recent addition to the Hall of Iconic American Landmarks, but it sure is one today. It's the largest mall in America. I don't know, is it the largest mall in the world? I'll have to check that out some other time, but yes, Mall of America. And finally, what comes to mind for me personally about Minnesota is all the colorful, exclamatory expressions. This is the land of you betchas, don't you knows, and my personal favorite, oofta. Yes, that is what you're gonna get in Minnesota, our 41st state. We got 9 left. 9 states left, can you believe it? Unbelievable for me, yeah. We are here at Powderhorn Lake to begin our adventure here in Minneapolis. And I just figure, land of 10,000 lakes. Hey, we got one of them down. 9,999 more to go. There's got to be more than 10,000 lakes here in this state, I'm sure. But at least here in Minneapolis, it's a state known for its abundance of parks. There's a whole park system in Minneapolis. And it ranges from small little things like this to nationally recognized areas. So yes, everyone, take a good look at Powderhorn Lake, because Powderhorn Park is just one of the many parks you'll find in this extensive Minneapolis system of parks. Places of natural preservation, conservation. It's a beautiful thing. Not all cities have that. A lot of times cities are just urban sprawl, so it's nice to have a city that truly values its natural element. Anyway, I am getting a little bit hungry. It's around lunchtime, and, well, you know what that means. We're in Minnesota, a new state, a state with very interesting culinary features. We gotta go for something casual here, something nice and quick. There is something in Minnesota that I would recommend if you are in the mood for some sort of burger. There is one place you must go to, and one item you must order. So for those of you who are from out of the country and are dying to know about American culture, or you're from inside the US and never have heard of stuff that goes in Minnesota, just so we can be clear on things, when a burger gets injured, it does not bleed cheese. That is just an American myth. No. What we had at Matt's Bar and Grill was called a Juicy Lucy. It is cooked with cheese inside a patty. It's like taking a bite out of molten lava because the cheese is so hot you gotta wait a few minutes for it to cool. It's a whole symphony in your mouth. The meat and cheese in tandem working together to give you that nice feeling of a very satisfying meal. And in fact it is at Matt's Bar and Grill, which claims to have created the Juicy Lucy. So now that we are fueled up with some of that great Minnesota food, the Juicy Lucy, we are ready to venture forth into the downtown of Minneapolis. Well, here we are, downtown Minneapolis. Now today, this grand city of about 426,000 people, that's a lot, is known for its beautiful, glassy, modern architecture. But it wasn't always like that. Before we had all the action of the big skyscrapers and all that there is to see in this urban area, there was simply just a beautiful, quaint, natural area right by the Mississippi River. In fact, the Mississippi River is so long that it's sometimes categorized, divided into a couple sections. There's the lower Mississippi River down in Mississippi, Tennessee, and that's where you have all the agricultural stuff going on. And sometimes people consider there to be a mid portion of the river, but everyone can agree that the Mississippi River is generally divided into at least two. The northernmost part of the Mississippi River is known as the upper Mississippi River, and this is before it collects all the water from the various tributaries around the center of the country. It's generally a little bit more narrow of a river, but it's still pretty powerful. It's a major river through the upper Mississippi course. The interesting thing is, though, that in Minneapolis, there sits the only major natural waterfall along the Mississippi's course. People in America have always wanted to find opportunities, and if they couldn't stay in their place of origin, if they had to move and migrate throughout the country for better opportunity, oh, you bet yourself they would absolutely, in a heartbeat. There are many resources in America, and sometimes opportunities just present itself. When the first people coming west saw the falls along the Mississippi River, as we're going to see St. Anthony Falls, they were like, wait a minute, this is a good place to generate power. We should set up some mills here. Because all mills, whether it be a sawmill for lumber or a flour mill for getting flour for bread, for baking products, you're gonna need some source of power so that the operations can function as they should, ideally. So all over Minneapolis, because of the falls we'll be seeing, companies set up shop. I mean, you can see the sign for Gold Medal Flour, an iconic flour company. And on to the other side of the river, you'll see Pillsbury. Oh yes, the Pillsbury Doughboy got to start right here. Having gone through a period of endangerment, this natural falls was then made into, well, more of a dam-like structure. But that doesn't mean that this area doesn't hold tremendous significance. The people of Minneapolis decided that they were going to turn this town, at the time, it's now a big city, into a mill town. So lumber and flour were big products. And with the companies that showed up, like Gold Medal and Pillsbury, of course, as we talked about, Minneapolis became the world's best flour city. If you had a flour company, you would want to bring it to Minneapolis, that's for sure. Oh yeah, here's where we get that classic Mill City, Minneapolis charm. This is the Pillsbury A Mill, and that should tell us that this A Mill was the foremost mill in the Pillsbury Company. Maybe a little over 100 years ago, it would be commonplace to see workers lined up here. Not in line, but, you know, a bunch of workers for the Pillsbury Company doing their daily tasks, getting the mills ready, working inside. Probably lots of bags of flour that were just laying out here, waiting to be done with. Ah, those were the days, huh? Well, we have seen a lot here in Minneapolis so far already. You see, Minneapolis, Minnesota is a very interesting city here in America, with an industrial history and now a modern, progressive outlook and worldview. It's got a lot of potential, a lot of things going for it already, and there's still a lot to be done that can make this become a world power, honestly. But enough walking around in the downtown. I would like you all to see the roots of Minneapolis. I mean, yes, the story of Minneapolis and its industrial triumph is nothing without the story of its waterfalls, but I still want to take you all back to, wow, it is quite windy, quite stormy, quite rainy. I can't even think straight. But I want to take you guys all back to its first origins as a big settlement. Well, our last destination didn't go how I expected. That was supposed to be Minnehaha Falls, not Minnehaha No Falls. So let's see if we can't find another place to end today's adventures. Alright, so before the modern Minneapolis you see today, before the industrial takeover of all the flour mills in this area, there was simply nature and the indigenous people, the Dakota, who viewed this area on which we are walking right now to be very sacred, because this is where the confluence of two rivers are. The Mississippi River that we've seen and the Minnesota River. Now the Minnesota River flows through, you guessed it, Minnesota. What came first, the state of Minnesota or the Minnesota River being named? That's something for the history books I'll definitely have to see. But take a look in front of us. This is the Mississippi River right before it joins forces with the Minnesota River to make a more powerful Mississippi River. And so, when the US came over to this area of Minnesota, they realized it was a strategic place right by these rivers to set up base. So this is historic Fort Snelling. It was used as a military base up until World War II. So this has plenty of history. If only the walls could speak, as that saying goes. That's just one building of the many buildings here at Fort Snelling. Fort Snelling was established in the year 1819, making it one of the oldest, if not the oldest, settled places in the state of Minnesota by Americans. And I think it is sadly closed. Yeah, sometimes you just don't make the deadline and you see a closed door right before the fort. Yep, sadly, it's not just that back entrance, it's also the front entrance, which is closed. Fort Snelling, why do you have to do this to us? You win some, you lose some, and today we had a small loss with this, but overall I think we had a great time in Minneapolis. The reason I wanted to end off here, though, is because Fort Snelling is what really kick-started the settlement, not only of Minneapolis and the Twin Cities, but all of Minnesota and a lot of the upper Midwest. It was here at the confluence of these two rivers which really allowed people to explore beyond. From here, people ventured further west, either to settle and homestead, or just to explore what was beyond. And the people throughout American history will not have been the only ones to go from here at Fort Snelling and branch off and explore and discover new parts of Minnesota. So will we on the Coverage Project. Oh yes. The Twin Cities are called such for a very good reason. There's much to see not only in Minneapolis, but also tomorrow's destination, St. Paul. Normally I don't reveal the location, the destination we go to in advance, but it's kind of obvious. You can't just go here in Minneapolis without venturing to the other twin of the Twin Cities, St. Paul. That's like neglecting one twin and favoring the other. You can't do that here. No. So tomorrow, St. Paul, get excited for that. It is the capital of Minnesota. So there's always something there in a capital city. But anyway, how is that for a debut into the land of 10,000 lakes? Minneapolis, the city of lakes. Yeah, it actually literally means city of lakes. Minea means lake or lakes in the native Dakota language, and polis is just, Greek for city. So yes, city of lakes here on the Coverage Project. Very fun time. Kinda cold, kinda rainy, but rain will not deter us, as I say. I'll echo what I said at the beginning of today. Minneapolis is a place known for a lot of good and a lot of bad. Same thing goes for here at Fort Snelling. Wasn't a place of the greatest actions. No, a lot of bad things happen, but, it's a very historic site. And so learning about it may be a good thing for us on the Coverage Project. But anyway, regardless of that, we end today at Fort Snelling. Today in the 21st century, you may hear a lot about Minneapolis. It is a huge area, the Twin Cities area. Huge, humongous, one of the largest metro areas in the country. And because of that, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. But I think surface level, there's a lot to be learned just to be associated with Minneapolis. You have New York City as the economic center of the country, Boston as the place where we first started to revolt against the British and their tyrannical rule to create this country. We think of Washington, D.C. as, the federal capital, the administrative hub. And with a city like Minneapolis, I feel like it's very important to understand that this is a very important industrial city for the growth of the nation. So I made it my mission today here in Minneapolis to show you all that this city is more than what you might hear in the news or things you might read online, surface level things. Minneapolis has brought forth great contributions, not so great contributions, but that's a thing with a lot of places. So I'm here on the Coverage Project to show you that Minneapolis is more than what you would believe. It was historically that great milling superpower. And today it stands as that great northern metropolis. So, with a great view of the Mississippi River, with the downtown in the distance, awaiting the next half, tomorrow, of our adventures in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. More travels to come. I will see you at the next location.